Hi there. Welcome to today's WESIS webinar. My name is Lynn Dome, and I'm Women in Cybersecurity Executive Director. We often go by our acronym WESIS, WICYS, as in We Sisters, which is exactly what we are. We are a cyber sisterhood. And our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. And we do so by creating opportunities. We have over 5,000 members and have representation in over 70 countries. There's over 40 professional affiliates in Africa, Australia, Canada, France, India, Pakistan, the UK, and all throughout the United States. We have 4 specialty affiliates: critical infrastructure, WESIS military, WESIS trusted AI, and coming soon will be WESIS Bizzo affiliate. In addition to that, we have developed and launched over 130 student chapters in Canada, Costa Rica, India, Nigeria, and all throughout the United States as well. And since we have the mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity, our members are comprised of women, men, allies, and advocates that are all passionate and supporting of that initiative. In addition to that, since we're a 501c3 nonprofit, we have many, many more initiatives as well, such as an online members forum where all our members can network and connect. Within the members forum, we have special interest groups such as neurodiversity and cybersecurity, Latinas and cybersecurity, military spouses, data privacy, cybersecurity law. You name it, you could have the conversation that you need within the special interest groups, or you could go ahead and launch your own. We have skill development training programs like the security training scholarships. We have AWS build out a roadmap for us. Target builds out cybersecurity challenges. So on and off throughout the year, we have many, many more skill development training programs. I encourage you all to go to our website and check it out. We have newsletters, webinars, scholarships, grants, and awards, which, interestingly enough, and by the way, our scholarships, grants, and awards for the March 17th through the 19th WESIS 2022 conference that's in Cleveland, Ohio. That application is open and the deadline closes tonight at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. In addition to our call for participation closes tonight at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time as well. We have a cyber talent emergency fund designed for students within their last 4 semesters of graduating. They can receive up to $599 in funding for true financial emergencies, like they can't afford their rent or their car breaks down or there's an unexpected medical expense. We don't want this to derail them from their cybersecurity programs on their campuses. We want them to be able to stick in their programs, and we know that the extra funding of $599 could help them overcome some significant challenges. We have speaking and media opportunities for our members to be what others can see. We have a job board plus plus where strategic partners post jobs in year round and all our members can get recruited from. We offer apprenticeship programs, internship programs, market research, leadership summits, virtual career fairs, in-person virtual careers, veterans and military spouse assistance. We have a mentor-mentee program that has over 770 mentees and 191 mentors, in which we designed and developed a curriculum to upskill and uplevel women no matter where they're at in their careers, preparing them for their next level of advancement. We do all of that and so much more. So check out our website and subscribe to our newsletter. And we owe all that as a special thanks to our strategic partners. They're the foundation of all things WESIS. And that's AWS, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Facebook, Google, Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin brings us the fabulous webinar we have here today. We have Microsoft and Optum, AbbVie, JP Morgan Chase and Company, LinkedIn, Navy Federal Credit Union, Nike, Sentinel One, Wayfair, Workday, Accenture, American Airlines, Arctic Wolf, Champlain, College, Dell Technologies, Envestnet, Flatiron, Fortinet, Haystack Solutions, Here Technologies, The Home Depot, IBM, Indiana University, MITRE, Motorola Solutions, Oak Ridge National Labs, Palo Alto Networks, PayPal, Salesforce, Sands Institute, SAP, Schlumberger, Smooth Stack, Spirit Tip, Starbucks, Target, University of California, San Diego, and Verizon. Woo, that is a lot of strategic partners that are like funding us annually with all these fabulous year-round benefits, and we're so grateful. So I want to encourage you. We have the fabulous Pam here with us today, and she's going to be speaking on ensuring a technology relevant workforce. And I want to just encourage everyone to ask a lot of questions. At the bottom of your window, there's that chat function for you to ask questions, and Pam will graciously offer her time and be able to answer those questions live. So, again, subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't done so already, or reach out to us on social media. We're everywhere. Just search WICYS, WICYS, and we look forward to hearing from you. And without further ado, I'm going to just pass the mic on over to Pam from Lockheed Martin, and she is going to take this webinar from here. Pam?
Thank you, Lynn. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to present to you today about maintaining a technology relevant workforce. So this will also give some approaches that you can take as an individual. Maybe it will help some organizations, management, think about how they're evolving their employees' careers. So there's going to be this will be packed with information. We'll take a little bit of a look at the technology timeline, which is kind of the catalyst for what we're speaking about today, and how these challenges could be approached, and what types of engineers we started with, what types of engineers we're evolving to be able to meet these challenges. We'll take a look at a couple of use cases and take a look at some of the options and resources that are available to you, and then maybe how you can put together a plan to enhance your career. So the technology timeline, over the last several decades, we've seen an explosion of IT innovations, including cloud computing, big data, analytics, methodologies, and other technologies that are making our world more interconnected, but also more complex. If you look at some of these, was hoping to capture some of this. Some of you may have worked through some of this time. Some of you, just for the historical purposes, may find it interesting that you think about even the data storage that we have today, terabytes, petabytes, all this, and yet in the early 80s, we had 5.25-inch hard disks, floppy disks, and they're very, very limited storage. And then in the 90s, around 1993, the web was put into the public domain. And then we started having more languages to develop these web applications. And you could see from the boxes on here that they're kind of sparse in the beginning, and then they start to get more heavily populated as we get into 2000 on. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but it was just meant to give you some idea about where things started and where we are today. So if you're dealing with all of these things and you're at the upper end of this now, this may be what you're feeling right now. Are you overwhelmed? Are you bewildered? It's like, how do I deal with all of these different things? So given the accelerated pace of this vast change, the nature of the information technology work requires IT professionals to work also with business and organizational knowledge in addition to their technical expertise. And the IT professionals have to be more adaptable with boundary spanning abilities. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. So we're going to focus on software engineers today, but the same holds true for many other types of engineers. And the challenge exists for individuals, but also for businesses. So right now, software engineers are one of the hottest jobs on the market. They're responsible for overall development, execution of software systems. Some of their duties may include anything from writing complex code, running unit tests, reviewing other developers' code. Some may need to be involved with design, with architecture, and as we saw earlier on the timeline, the technology explosion and project complexity drives changes in how we do business, including managing these skill sets. So when we approach this challenge today, we're going to look from an individual perspective and some of the approaches that you might use to not only keep pace or even to stay ahead of this technology curve. What kind of skills are you going to need to evolve your career? And what are hiring managers looking for? And you need to be prepared for all of this. So this is a little graphic of kind of where we are. The I engineer is where we started, where you got a degree in computer science, some other type of engineering, and you're very, very focused in that core set of skills, expertise, and you're able to solve certain types of problems. But finding engineers with relevant technical and communication skills is essential. So this is another struggle that the companies are now facing. And so while it's a challenge, this is certainly a positive. So let's look at where we are and where we are headed for the to be, but realize that there is no final destination. This is an ongoing journey, but it's an exciting one. So developing the innovative solutions with a vision of tomorrow requires a different mindset. So most engineers, because of their nature, are curious, and they typically have a continuous learning mindset, and they welcome opportunities to apply new technologies to solve problems. An interesting analogy for healthcare, you've heard of the apple, pear, and hourglass shapes that typically tend to characterize aspects of one's overall physical health. What you may not have heard is that the human resources and managers have adopted a similar concept to assess an engineer's overall occupational health, which means that engineers also come in various shapes. So we're going to take a look at the engineering shapes, but then for the purposes of the discussion today, we're going to focus on the T-shaped engineer. So as we talked about just a few minutes ago, an engineer having deep knowledge in a specific area is needed. Many engineers are drawn to these kind of assignments to have opportunities to solve some of the most difficult problems with rewarding solutions. And these are your I-shaped engineers. They possess the skills that have been honed to a deep and specific area of expertise. And that's been quite prevalent over the years. Now there is also what is called an X-shape or an E-shaped engineer. This is often known as the executive, since senior leaders often possess these skills, and they typically have skills with a deeper expertise and a core knowledge, as well as strong leadership skills. Then you have your pie-shaped engineers. They have a unique makeup, and it's an excellent metaphor for team members that are truly adaptive. So rather than having a deep expertise in one area, a pie-shaped team member possesses two. Maybe it's a developer and a business analyst, or maybe it's a developer with a user experience design expertise or some quality assurance or test automation. So team members with multiple areas of expertise provide greater flexibility to the team, especially in organizations that have limited resources. Then you have your comb-shaped engineer. Your comb-shaped engineer has a broad base with multiple expertise areas, giving the shape of a comb. So there are a lot of specific domains of expertise as well as some breadth. However, the multiple expertise areas typically never deep enough as the knowledge of the deep specialists in the one area, but there is still a lot of value to this type of engineer. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to speak mostly about the T-shaped engineer. So that person has depth and breadth. When it comes to the core skills, they definitely can drill deep down, and they're experts. When it comes to the general broad knowledge across, they're not experts in every single discipline. They have some level of knowledge. They may be able to perform some work in some of those areas, but they are not experts in that. However, there's value to being able to do that, especially on teams today. So we're going to take a look at this and thinking about back to the technology timeline and the evolution of the vast amount of software available. Engineers having some level of knowledge across these areas might be able to fill that role. If you take a look at this particular slide, you'll see the various types of engineers having those depths. The analyst being able to write the executable documents, being able to capture that knowledge from the customer and turn those into requirements and fully understand what the customer wants out of that. Being able to communicate through writing user manuals, and the developer, having his or her expertise developing code, being able to design architectures, databases, writing unit tests. Then you have your test engineer who will be able to write the automated tests. They'll be able to address the functional engineering aspects and prepare test plans. And I had mentioned the web designer having the user experience design. You got your back-end people that are able to write the interfaces that work on the side where it's not exposed to the end user, but then you have those other engineers whose job is so critical to be able to understand how these systems are being used and to design an effective interface where they will be able to communicate with the user and have that user have a positive experience and understand how to use that system. So their skills are yet a little different. And then you have your systems engineer with the Devops these days. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And your systems engineer will also work with the requirements engineering and then systems and operating systems. If you look across this, you'll see that there is the commonality across where every one of these different types of engineers need to be able to understand that top level. But even though a developer may write some unit tests, that developer is not going to perform testing to that same level that the test engineer does. So therefore, that's your T-shape, but they will be able to communicate. The developer could communicate with an analyst. If you're working with Agile, you'll see that when you're writing the user stories, once you understand what requirements need to be met and how these are going to be worked, the developer will have to understand those. And the developer will work with the analyst to also understand what will this mean for this to be accepted. So your acceptance criteria is important so the developer knows when they're finished implementing this particular capability. Those acceptance criteria are really important for the developer to also communicate with the test engineer. And I've worked on several programs where once those two teams started interfacing with each other, the testing was much more effective. A lot less went back to the developer before it went to integration testing. So that was extremely effective. So you can see where these definitely interplay with each other. Now, we talked about I mentioned DevOps or the DevSecOps. So you start to get more into the areas where on a DevSecOps team, any engineer should be able to fill any role if needed, anywhere from making small tweaks on a UI to debugging a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline. Again, this does not mean that any engineer should be a jack of all trades, but they should have enough knowledge to be able to communicate and break down the silo barriers, thus the dev and the ops. So anywhere from development through that cycle to the operations. And when you're developing, you want to make sure that you're beginning with the end in mind to start to create this culture where you have this communication across these teams. In the age of constant security, vulnerabilities, subsequent security patches, and the rapid and frequent addition of features makes software makes security even more critical. And security has gotten pushed to the left all the way from beginning with requirements and development. There's no more tossing it over the wall to the next group. Security is part of everyone's job. So for the Devops, the workflow that emphasizes that communication between the developers and the other groups and managing all the way to managing production environments, it's at the forefront whenever we're considering how to shape a department to fit an organization's internal needs and best serve its customer. So think of horizontal as boundary crossing, competencies and behaviors, including the communication, the teamwork, the networks, critical thinking, project management. While this is preferred, there's no guarantee that the engineer can perform everywhere. But usually teams, when they develop this culture, they also develop the mindset that they're a team. So the individual is not the focus, it's what do we, as the sum of all of us, bring together as a team, and that it tends to be a lot stronger of a well-performing team. So at this point, if you're convinced that a T-shaped engineer is something that you want to consider, if you're on an Agile team, make sure you understand your sprint goals. Make sure that the Scrum Master is rallying around accomplishing that goal, and everyone on the team is growing their skill sets. Considering, pick up a ticket that you might not be familiar with and ask to pair with someone on that ticket, or ask to pair with someone on a ticket you're already working. Even outside of the workplace, there are so many more meetings, whether these are meetings online, meetings in person, maybe not so much right now, but attend a meeting that you don't normally attend. For a group centering around discussing topics and establishing best practices related to a particular discipline. If you're a web engineer, try attending something where there are meetings discussing a focus on infrastructure. So once you're out into the workplace, there is also a lot more professional training and mentoring that provides a lot of the specific in-depth knowledge. And you also heard there is a lot of training available too through this organization as well. So there's just so much out there to be tapped. But in order to be successful, you must not only be collaborative across multiple departments, skill sets, and then also geographies. There are teams that are distributed in geographical areas, and you might think that that's difficult, but it's really not as difficult as you may think, because there's so much more available as far as communication. Tools are also collaborative. They're also accommodating for these geographical differences. So there's, it just facilitates this whole process. And let's see. For the particular Devops, you can see from this particular use case, you're all familiar with this particular diagram. You start, again, this is not a comprehensive list of tools, but you have the tools that allow you to build. You have repositories like the Git, and you have the collaboration tools, project management tools like the Jira, other ways of collaborating and documenting through Confluence, going through this entire process where you're configuring your environments, whether you're doing Chef, Ansible, maybe you're using Kubernetes and Docker to deploy in containers and making it easier to deploy in various environments. And then once you deploy, you want to make sure that you're also using tools to monitor your resources, monitor the usage. And you can quickly see that if you're doing all of these things, there's just a whole lot more that you have to learn. But again, it's typically interesting to engineers, and they take advantage of these opportunities. So for the DevOps and the benefits of T-shaped engineers here, when we work on these across these different groups, it usually is more of a team effort and takes a lot less time because the whole team is focused on building the project. When engineers tend to only focus in their area of expertise, it tends to take longer for some of these projects to get done. They're focused in their own area. They have to frequently go back and interface with the other teams, like I said before, with the testing. When there was a more collaborative effort between the developers and their acceptance criteria and the testers using that acceptance criteria to help develop their tests, it was so much smoother, and there was far less going back to the developers to have to redo and retest. This tends to be more productive too. There's a lot less context switching on the team, so everyone stays in context when they're working on a single objective, but the discussions help to make sure that there is communication and working things through the entire way. So breaking down these T-shaped engineers, breaking down the siloing of knowledge, and this kind of ends up as somewhat of a default because when everyone on the team is working toward a common objective and you're sharing the knowledge being shared across the team avoids the need to arrange for cross-training of disciplines because you're already doing it. So this tends to be a benefit of the T-shaped engineer. And working on unfamiliar tasks allows engineers to grow their skills in various areas. So it's just a win-win all the way around. And most of all, this tends to eliminate hearing "it's not my job" attitude and fostering a full team ownership on a project. So for a few more points on the DevOps, while the tools are an important enabler, the most important is this culture. And it's up to everyone, leaders and the engineers working, that we want to make sure that everyone who's contributing is contributing to something valuable, and it's the team that is working together to achieve the end product, the quality, and looking for the efficiencies. And when we look for the efficiencies, especially in the DevOps, we're looking at tools, we're looking at automation, and the combination of all of those things definitely integrates, tests, makes things more consistent on a continuous basis, and it's definitely a benefit. So when you're a DevOps engineer, you consider everything in the pipeline and look at broadening your knowledge outside of this core expertise. So how can you become a T-shaped engineer? So at this point, you're probably thinking, I want to do this. I don't have the time. So we'll talk about a number of approaches to work in this continuous learning in manageable chunks of time, and also what is affordable to you. So there are a few strategies that you can use to keep your skills fresh. Whatever is on this page, these are not endorsements. They're just a few examples of the various options that are are available to you. So, for deepening your knowledge, we can look at there are a number of books. Books take a while to read. There are a lot of video clips, blogs, different things on the web, tech talks, online courses. So, online resources, again, it's easier than in years past to learn skills on your own time. What we mentioned before about sharing expertise while you're working the projects, that is a very efficient way of gaining the knowledge while you're working. But there are some other things that you want to pursue, and you need to find the time to sit down and use those resources independently. So there are online services like a Coursera, like a Udemy, and many of those have a lot of very good courses that are broken down into various segments. So you don't have to sit there and watch the entire course or learn all of the technology in one sitting. Some of them even have maybe 10 or 15-minute video clips, which are extremely useful because you might have heard of something and then you think, well, do I really need to use that? Do I need to be a little more knowledgeable about that particular product or about that particular technology? And if that's the case, you can watch one of these 10, 15-minute videos and determine, do I need to learn more? Or, okay, I'm aware of it. That's enough. I can converse and get along with my team. So as far as executives, they also have the need to have a high level of knowledge. So these little brief introductory videos are also helpful to them, too, to help participate in discussions with their teams and to develop their strategies. And some of the online programs for like the Coursera and the Udemy and also LinkedIn Learning, they have labs with exercises. And it's one thing to read about technology, but it's another thing to actually try it. So when you're trying it, you gain the hands-on learning experience. You typically tend to remember a concept having used it than just reading about it. You might remember when you made a mistake, what that mistake was, and how to fix those types of things. So very, very helpful. Safari Books Online, not only do they have a lot of books, and they allow you to be able to search for different concepts, different words, and make it very easy to find what you need in a very short period of time. But also note that some of the things that are available in Safari Books Online are cases, presentations from conferences, a certification educational videos, which you would have to otherwise maybe attend a class and you say, I can't miss a week of work. But you can get on Safari Books Online and watch some of these videos and then be better prepared to take some of these certification courses. Also, YouTube, there is so much more available on there. Some of the conferences sessions are also recorded and they're posted on YouTube. And some people just have the knowledge. They're very passionate about it. They're very good at it, and they want to share that to help others. So that's definitely, and you could pick the different ones based on the amount of time that you have and determine which ones are more effective for you than others. LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning actually has learning paths. You don't have to use these learning paths, but if, for example, you want to, say you want to become a web developer and you want to learn some in-depth experience, and it'll give you a proposed path for that particular skill, which courses, which videos, with different instructors, all geared toward helping you develop that specific set of skills. And then, of course, there are technical blogs, which people are posting to all the time, and that's yet a good way to stay on top of what is new and coming. The other part, there is a more formal education, and there are certifications. So a while back, You used to be able to get a degree, then you get a master's degree, maybe you get a PhD degree. But the technology started evolving so rapidly that universities realized that they need to provide some opportunities for the working people to keep their technical skills up to date while they're working with these tighter time constraints of juggling work, family, studies. And also, there's a financial aspect to this too. So you could pursue the various degree programs, but there are other things that are certificate programs. These are often called professional certificates, and they're awarded for completing an educational program in a specific field. So it gives professionals an opportunity to develop the desired skills and can be obtained much more quickly than a degree. So a graduate certificate program typically allows students to graduate within a year, whereas most master's degree programs take around 2 years. Depending on the program that you're studying, they may require anywhere from 4 to 8 targeted graduate level courses. And it's definitely cost effective and allowing you to keep up with your field of study or branch out into new areas. There are some cybersecurity certificates. Again, this is not any kind of endorsement, but just examples. MIT has a cybersecurity certificate, 24 weeks, an online course, 15 to 20 hours a week. So if you want to learn cybersecurity essentials, that's one area. And Hopkins has certificate programs in cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, data science, systems engineering, technical management. The University of Maryland Global Campus also has graduate certificates in cybersecurity. In addition to the in addition to the certificate programs, there are also boot camps, and they tend to be even more intense and in a shorter period of time. There are things called short courses, which are another way to advance your skills. It's a learning program. It's less extensive than a full-fledged degree program and maybe even a little bit lighter than the certificate program. They're similar to certificate programs, but they definitely have an abridged learning program, and there are wide ranges of topics for those out there. So short courses, you can get machine learning, cybersecurity at some place, for example, Harvard. They'll have a cybersecurity managing risk in the information age. That is 8 weeks in offering, approximately 8 to 11 hours a week. So flexible learning, again, targeted for the working professional. So there is, a lot for you to go out and explore. Some of the other things that are really important for the working professional is some of the certifications. These are becoming more prominent. There are things like the Google Certified Professional Cloud Architect. There is a Certified Ethical Hacker. There are things like the Project Management Professional. And again, depending on your area of expertise or where you want to target your next job, you need to look at what certifications are really required or preferred in these areas. Sometimes that certification might give you that edge between you being hired versus another person that has similar expertise and years of experience. And it definitely is an indicator of your level of knowledge for those areas. So there are a number of certifications. And then, get involved, because some of the times you may not have opportunities to use some of these areas that you want to get some experience in to be able to say, I want a job in this particular area, but I'm not able to do that where I'm working now. So there are opportunities for you to volunteer uh, on nonprofit organizations or other areas. And you'd be surprised because for a lot of the nonprofits, they really can't afford to bring in somebody to implement some of these technical capabilities on their websites, and or they need a database developed. Just a few examples like that. And if you are looking for those types of opportunities, they typically welcome those. You end up meeting a lot of really good people, and you're developing and supporting a very good cause. So you can really make a difference in your community and get experience at the same time. So looking at these types of things too, it's you can't really just look at one thing and then not do anything with it. And this is, like you said before, it's a continuous. This is a mindset. You're constantly looking out there for what do I need to learn, what do I need to deepen my knowledge in, and statistically, roughly 70% of software engineers will spend at least 5 hours a week on their own time learning new technologies and strengthening their knowledge. So if you ask some of those people that do that, they'll say, I need to keep my skills sharp. So when you go to look for your next job and you target a certain area, continue to practice the skills you currently have, try out the new skills that you're not as familiar with, work with other people to have the conversations. A lot of times you'll read something, but your understanding of that is enhanced when you're actually having discussions with other people because you have different backgrounds, so you bring different things to the table, and you end up with a much stronger background. Um, Word of mouth is another easy way to spread ideas. Sharing your ideas with your coworkers and your colleagues is a good way of looking for some next emerging technology in its application. A lot of times you may work with customers, and the customers, you know where they want to head, but they are not necessarily coming right out and saying, I really want you to do this. I need these particular capabilities. Or you've been working with an application that has been around for such a long time. They're saying, well, this is just, operations and maintenance. But really, when you think about it, it may not be, because it may get to a certain point where you know where their goals are and their strategy is, and then you may say, at a certain point, we're not going to be able to maintain this huge monolithic application. We may need to change the architecture. Maybe we consider moving to microservices. And you start having those discussions with the customer and helping them understand, if you continue on doing what we're doing now, here are the things we may encounter. If you start moving and consider this other particular approach, you're going to be able to deploy capabilities into the hands of your users in a much quicker time frame. And we've had those discussions with customers. Sometimes they say, okay, I understand that, no. And we've had other ones that say, wow, yeah, let's do that, because then they definitely understand. So it's, again, that comes down to the communication and your level of knowledge. So let's look at planning your transformation as we're talking about all these things. And many of you may already be doing this, but you need to be able to be willing to try new things, assess results, fail fast, new technologies to be explored, but without trying them, you won't have any idea if you have a chance of having something that is far more feasible and beneficial. So for planning your own transformation, we need to continue to evolve. The technology continues to evolve, and if you don't evolve with it, you're going to stagnate. So take your time. Being T-shaped is not an easy task that can be achieved in just a weekend or two with a couple of courses. It's going to take time, weeks, months, years. Keep an open mind, expand your knowledge as you're able to, and keep growing. We talked about identifying opportunities to apply the new knowledge. So, a well rounded engineer that understands every part of the process of a project doesn't have to be able to execute every part, but needs to have the relevant level of knowledge of how each part relates to the others and be able to communicate with these other areas and people on those teams. And that is key to success. Learn things outside your area of expertise. Take your knowledge to the next level, even in things that you are relatively proficient in. Continue to grow and expand your skill set. Focus on learning the basics of other areas, and you can decide when you've reached a knowledge that is level of knowledge that's sufficient. And you want to, in order not just for yourself, but for your teammates too, you want to create a safe and collaborative environment where the knowledge can flow. You want to make sure that other people are trying to reach outside of their comfort zone. Welcome those people and in conversations that way. Be patient and create opportunities to have informal group discussions so that everybody benefits from that. And stay ahead of the game. So think ahead, plan. Even if you're not looking for a new job, explore other jobs that may interest you. Look at the technologies and skills that are needed for those jobs. Identify any gaps in your skill set. Use that gap analysis to create a roadmap on how you might close those gaps, considering studies, certifications that might be required. Identify opportunities to apply the skills that you'll gain and have a better understanding. And regardless of your future decisions, you'll be better suited to support the other areas that we mentioned before. So being T-shaped is important because you'll provide more flexibility and fit other roles and communicate better with your teammates. And you'll also create an environment where your teammates will not feel like they're necessarily bound into certain areas. And I'll give you an example of that, where a lot of developers on a team had been more or less back-end developers. They didn't really touch too much of the UI and front-end work. And we had another engineer, that on this team that took the opportunity to expand their knowledge into more of UI development and became quite good at it. And everybody said, oh, that person's really a great UI engineer. They all had that opportunity to learn more about that. And that person, although they were good, would have liked for other people to have learned a little bit more, to have those other conversations that we're talking about, and it can be more collaborative environment. So go beyond your own limits and learn things outside the scope of your expertise. And doing this will not only help your career, it'll serve as an important part of evolving your organization. So with that, I know we've talked about a lot of things. We have about 10 minutes. We'll take questions.
So Pam, we do have a question that came in. Do you want me to read it to you? It's up in the question chat area. We had a couple questions come in. So I'll go ahead and read it off. It is, what would you say are the top 3 cybersecurity entry and mid-level skills that students are looking to learn?
Okay, this is more of cybersecurity specific.
Yeah.
So I think what I would rather do with that, because this was not really a focus of this, is to respond to that. It's a great question, but I'd like to respond to that one offline.
Sure. Yeah, because I'm sure there's lots involved with that question.
Yes. So one of the other ones that I've seen here are, when we're talking about like the DevSecOps engineer, it's almost inevitable that you're going to be in some sort of environment for that. So for that, how can I become a DevSecOps engineer or evolve toward that, would be completing qualification in a computer science course, focusing on software development and building your knowledge in some of the cloud technologies. There's so much more of that we're having to deal with now. Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platforms, something like Microsoft Azure. Learning some of the various tools that are used throughout the development pipeline, which includes some of the monitoring tools like the Nagios or Zabbix, and building your knowledge of industry-relevant coding languages, definitely like the Javas, and then some of the front-end type of languages like the JavaScripting or the Angular and things, those types of things. Increasing your knowledge of potential security vulnerabilities, and maybe this will help answer some of the other. There is an organization called the OWASP, the Open Web, OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project, which is globally recognized by developers as the first step toward more secure coding. So when you're looking at these things, if you go to OWASP, OWASP.org, there are a lot of prioritized potential vulnerabilities, and it's been real interesting working with some of these security experts where you will do your development, you will compile your code, and it will compile, but some of the times you won't realize that you have vulnerabilities in there, and there's a more secure way of writing the code. And some of the static analysis tools like a SonarQube or a Fortify can highlight some of these potential vulnerabilities, and you can get a better idea on where you need to focus a little more on making your code more secure. And there is also the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the Risk Management Framework, providing a process that integrates the security, the privacy, and cyber supply chain risk management activities into the system development lifecycle. And remember, when you're doing some of these assessments to maybe using the risk management framework, you want to take that all the way to the beginning of your development and if you're doing the Agile, write the user stories and making sure those types of things are factored into your testing that you're doing before you actually release to production. There are some security certifications too. Some of the best information security certifications are the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, or the CISSP. There is Certified Ethical Hacker, which is also a very interesting and eye-opening type of certification. These all raise your awareness of the types of things that you may encounter, and then how to best deal with those. So hopefully that helps a little bit too with touching on some of that.
That's very helpful, Pam. Thank you for that clarification and going through that.
One of the other things, too, I mentioned before, and if you're looking at even something like a pie-shaped, and we were talking about user experiences, so there is actually a user experience engineer that they'll combine the front-end engineering with user experience principles. They'll collaborate with designers and back-end engineers so that the overall experience with using a product or service is optimal. And that can make a huge difference. So that's also another important area and much needed area to develop deeper expertise.
Great. Well, it looks like it's time for us to go ahead and wrap up. There were some great questions there, Pam. I really appreciate your time and attention for presenting today. Great information was shared. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to info@wesis.org, or you can sync up with Pam on LinkedIn, or email the info@wesis.org if you have more information that's needed. We're happy to share that information with you. But we really appreciate your attention and sharing your afternoon with the WSIS organization. We're grateful for Lockheed Martin for being a strong WSIS supporter and fabulous strategic partner, and for Pam for putting together this incredible presentation for our community to learn and grow because of. So, Pam, do you have any final words that you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, just never stop learning, and keep researching and keep collaborating.
Beautiful. Great. Well, everyone have a fabulous afternoon. We'll catch up again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Pam. Thank you.